This is a book review of The Invincible Iron Man Epic Collection 1. It covers the years 1963 to 1965 and it's Tales of Suspense 39 to 72. So what's included in this? Some really great stories. Full colour throughout, of course there's some bonus material at the back, and it's about 500 pages of amazing stories and some average stories. Now they're all fairly short because Iron Man shared the magazine with short stories like The Watcher, etc., and Tales of Suspense, and also Captain America a little bit later. So you've got the first, it's got the contents page, and there's a lot of stories, 30 odd stories, and Iron Man is Born. That's the first issue. That was issue 39. And of course he gets a bit of shrapnel, obviously that's his weakness, his kryptonite basically. It causes problems for the storyline, etc. Initially he was in a grey armour, then he changed. His girlfriend at that point turned around and said, he's scaring people. So he turned it around and painted it gold. And I really like that issue, the Gargantus. And it's sort of like a horror, the monster stories. Gargantus was basically a monster. Because that was very similar to lots of those early stories with Fantastic Four, where they were monster stories. You had then Doctor Strange, which was very odd, but obviously that was used later. But you had Doctor Strange, who was an inventor. There were an awful lot of these stories were inventors. There was like Melter came, he was he invented something. Jack Frost, another inventor. So there was a lot of inventors. Strange enough, with Tony Stark being an inventor. Again, I've always felt, why on earth they just didn't use their invention to help mankind and at the same time make probably lots of money. Is there a bit disgruntled and try and beat Iron Man? Very odd. We got a communist story, which nothing much. That was the Red Barbarian. I had a few of those stories. And then you had Kalu. That was the name of the woman. Kala. Close. Kalu. That was probably the character from Doctor Strange. Kala, Queen of the Netherworld. A bit like Mole Man and Tyrannus. I don't think they ever met up. Anyway, there's a nice twist in that story. And you got quite a few. Then there's the similar story next, the Cleopatra, the Mad Pharaoh. And that's good. Nice time travelling story. And you've got Happy Hogan, and you've got, of course, Pepper Potts, etc. Though they end up very different later on. This is their early form. But I love actually this period setting for this thing. I mean, I love all the design, the 1960s sort of, it was good. They actually showed quite a lot of the buildings, the architecture at the time. Obviously, the stylised view of the time. Jack Frost, another inventor that was disgruntled, obviously developed powers that could obviously freeze people, etc. Crimson Dynamo, love that one. That was a great one, communist story, but a great character because he was similar to Iron Man. He basically was in a suit, the armour, and, pretty invincible. Of course, we know Iron Man wins in the end. It was continued on, the story developed a bit more later where you had Crimson Dynamite obviously turned up again later. It was different. And then there was Titanium Man as well. Very similar. So, Melter. Then we had Mr. Doll. And this is where Iron Man changed his armour. Because just to make it lighter, and he obviously realised there was problems, so he changed his armour, and you got the colour scheme that we're familiar with now, the red and yellow. And that was Steve Ditko. Brilliant bit of Steve Ditko. And then the next story is Angel. And that's, of course, from the X-Men. Angel gets blasted by radioactivity. And it's a real good story. It's really lovely crossover with the X-Men. That's just a great yarn. Again, like I say, Steve Ditko. And then we're on to actually a very big change in the storyline, introducing the Mandarin. So you've got the Mandarin, the first bit, the hands of the Mandarin. Not the rings of the Mandarin, but the hands of the Mandarin, I suppose. But anyway, he's got these rings, and he's pretty powerful. And he turns up quite a lot. Scarecrow. Good character. Crimson Dynamo strikes again, this time bringing the Black Widow. So this is obviously a very important issue in terms of the Marvel Universe. You've got Black Widow for the first time in a very different form. The gorgeous new menace of the Black Widow, as it says. I trusted you, help, etc. And we learn a little bit about the Black Widow, but of course, it's completely different later on. I mean, it doesn't even look. I mean, if you looked at that picture, the first early picture, you would not recognise her compared with obviously what she came later. Anyway, she turns up quite a bit. She's got this. And the Mandarin again. The Mandarin turned up quite a lot. He was a regular character. He was always, of course, with his rings, virtually unstoppable. And technically, he should always win every time, I would have thought. The Uncanny Unicorn. He could have been a contender, but sadly never was. He always had problems, the Unicorn. But he's a bit like the Cyclops character. So I suppose that's why they introduced the Unicorn. Had probably one of the, well, no, Paste Pot Pete probably had that. But Iron Man, obviously, battling the Unicorn. And the Unicorn did turn up quite a few times afterwards. I think in the X-Men, etc. Bit similar to the Living Laser. Very similar sort of character. Hawkeye, of course. That's another classic. It's on the power of Iron Man. Featuring the power. I love that when they always say the power of Iron Man. That was obviously the comic title, wasn't it? I mean, Tales of Suspense is virtually vanished from the thing. It's like really tiny letters. Power of Iron Man. So that was obviously the thing. And again, you've got Black Widow in the story with Hawkeye. Just a classic. Had that issue. That's one I regret. Get rid of. But then again, what can you say? You got Captain America. Good story. Loved the Captain America story. Then you got the Black Knight. So you had the right mix of characters. I mean, this was the thing with Iron Man. There was a real sort of, you had the Unicorn, Black Knight. Perhaps they were never the greatest of villains, but they were pretty still decent. Again, Mandarin turned up again. And then I love these ones. You've got a lovely pin-up page. The origin of Mandarin. So we finally find out about Mandarin. And, of course, actually, old Pepper Potts, etc. They all look very different from how they initially were in the first appearances. Got now, obviously, a red hair that we're used to. Of course, at this point, you've got Iron Man and Captain America Tales of Suspense. Goes back into his tumour, turns up. Tumour was a regular in sort of appearing in lots of it. Again, he was he's a poor man's Submariner. Titanium Man. I love that story where he was battling Titanium Man. And they got everyone watching on TV to see who's the best, USA or USSR kind of thing. And of course, what price? Victory! And then we've got the Adaptoid, not Adaptoid, the Mad Adaptoid. That was Captain America. You got the Mad Thinkers, whatever it was called, android thing. And he brings him in. And of course, Mad Thinker is there. Well, maybe he should have stuck to the Fantastic Four. So you got the suspense at the back, 58, 55, etc. You've got some lovely inked pages. And I love these sections. I wish there were more. I wish there's more bonus material, but I'd probably have a 200-page bonus section at the back if I. But this is a great little book. I love this epic collection. And actually, I loved all the epic collections of the Iron Man stories. They're a great collection of stories, so totally recommended.